Good evening. Settle in. Allow your body to relax. You're breathing too slow. You are about to drift gently into a different time, a different world. A world long past, but rich with stories that still whisper through the corridors of history. Tonight, we travel to the windswept coasts of Scandinavia, a place where the seas roared against rocky shores, and the winters were long and unrelenting. When most think of the Vikings, images of roaring warriors in horned helmets may come to mind. But this was only a fraction of their world. For most Norse people, life was not lived upon bloodied battlefields or distant raids, but upon the frozen soil of their homelands. In a ceaseless struggle against nature itself, you are invited to step quietly into the daily life of a Viking farmer, to feel the rhythm of their lives, to understand, softly and calmly, why you likely wouldn't last a single day in their worn leather boots. Now, imagine yourself there.
The first light of dawn has not yet crept over the horizon. The longhouse is still wrapped in thick darkness, pierced only by the faint orange glow of embers smoldering in the central hearth. The heavy scent of smoke hangs in the air, not unpleasant, but constant, weaving into your hair, your clothes, your very skin. The longhouse, built from timber and thatch, creaks softly as the wind rattles its sturdy walls. You wake beneath heavy woolen blankets, shared with your family, crowded tightly together for warmth. Outside, the wind howls, carrying with it the cold breath of the North Sea. It seeps through every gap, every wooden seam, as if determined to remind you of its presence. Your muscles ache before you even move. There is no true rest here, not in winter, not with the endless demands of the farm. The livestock stirs in their stalls at the far end of the house, cows lowing softly, sheep rustling, their body heat mingling with your own to warm the space. The day's work begins before the sun dares to rise. You rise slowly, careful not to disturb the others, slipping on thick, rough-spun wool garments. Your boots, stiff with frozen moisture from the previous day's work, are tugged onto weary feet. The longhouse door groans as you push it open, and the cold hits you like a wall, sharp, dry, and unrelenting. The ground outside is frozen hard. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth beneath a thin crust of snow. Your breath billows in slow white clouds. The silence is punctuated only by the distant cawing of crows, waiting for the day's scraps. First you check the animals. Their lives are your lifeline. The cows, their breath steaming, shuffle impatiently as you break the ice on their water troughs. The chickens huddle together, reluctant to stir from their nesting boxes. The pigs grunt, eager for their morning scraps. Each animal represents food, warmth, or trade, and each requires constant, unrelenting care. You haul water from a nearby well, the icy handle numbing your fingers despite your gloves. The rope creaks with every pull, and the bucket trembles with frigid water as you carry it back. Step after careful step across the slippery ground. After the animals are fed, your attention turns to the fields. In summer, they would stretch green and vibrant, but now they lie dormant, covered in frost, waiting for the brief growing season to return. Yet even in winter, work remains. Repairing fences, mending tools, chopping firewood. Always something, always another task. By mid-morning, your stomach rumbles. Simple meal awaits. Perhaps a thin porridge of barley, with a bit of dried fish, if luck allows. It is not indulgent, but it sustains. Food is never taken for granted. Last year's harvest was modest, and the winter stores are carefully rationed. As the pale sun arcs low in the sky, you labor to split logs. The axe swings rhythmically, each strike echoing through the cold air. Wood chips scatter around your boots as you build the pile that will keep the hearth burning through the long night ahead. The rhythm of the day continues. The cold never truly leaves your bones. The wool itches against your skin. Your hands are rough, cracked, perpetually raw from the labor and the cold. But this is simply life, as it always has been and as it always will be. The evening arrives early. The sun, never bold in winter, sinks quickly behind the distant hills. You return to the longhouse, the welcoming scent of burning wood and simmering stew greeting you. The stew is thin, a mixture of root vegetables and dried meats, but it is hot, and that is enough. You sit with your family, gathered close once more. Stories are shared, tales of the gods, of Thor's hammer, of Odin's wisdom, distant relatives who ventured across the seas. The old sagas are recited in low, measured tones, their words wrapping around you like a warm blanket of history. And yet, as you sit by the flickering fire, the wind howling just beyond the walls, you are aware of tomorrow. Another day, the same work, the same cold, the same struggle to carve life from an unforgiving land. This was the life of most Vikings, not the glory of raids, but the quiet, relentless perseverance of farming, surviving, enduring. You breathe deeply now. The fire crackles softly. The rhythm of their lives slows your own. And as you drift gently toward slumber, we will soon turn our attention to one who did not simply toil on the farm, but who made his mark in history through words, sword, and unbreakable will. When you are ready, we'll begin the story of Egill.
As the flames dance softly, casting flickering shadows against the rough-hewn timbers, you drift forward in time, not far. His name was Egill. Imagine yourself standing now upon the rugged coast of Iceland. The wind carries the sharp temps of salt from the sea, and the black volcanic cliffs rise stark against the pale northern sky. The waves strike the rocky shore with a steady rhythm, as constant as the beat of the human heart. This is the land where Egill was born, around the year 904, into a world shaped by both legend and hardship. From his earliest days, Egill was ... His father was a powerful man, strong, severe, and often cold. But Egill, even as a child, showed signs of a spirit that burned far too fiercely to remain quietly obedient. He was prone to anger, to mischief, and to an unsettling sense of determination. By the tender age of 3, Egill composed his first poem, a feat that would astonish even seasoned skalds, the poets of the Norse world. His verse was raw, yet precise, filled with a dark wit far beyond his years. But the world around him was not gentle. The Icelandic farmers, though free, lived under constant threat of famine, of conflict, of feuds that could ignite with the smallest insult. Honor was fragile, easily shattered. Words held power, so did the sword. As Egill grew, so too did his reputation, both as a gifted poet and as a fierce and dangerous fighter. There was little room for softness in this world. Every glance, every insult, every perceived slight carried weight. In the halls where mead flowed and voices rose, even a poorly chosen word could lead to bloodshed. And so, his life unfolded, a constant weave of verse and violence. When Egill was only 12 years old, an incident would mark his future forever. At a feast, he played a game with another boy, the son of a man named Baryor. Harsh words were exchanged. Egill, consumed by rage, took up an axe and ended the boy's life. The act was not taken lightly. It set in motion a feud, not uncommon in Norse society, that would ripple through the years to come. But for Egill, it also established his unyielding character, quick to anger, fearless, and bound by his own fierce code of honor. As a young man, Egill journeyed far beyond Iceland's shores. But even abroad, conflict found him. In Norway, Egill came into bitter conflict with King Eirik Bloodaxe and his formidable wife, Queen Gunhild. The king found Egill insolent. The queen despised him. Their enmity deepened with every encounter. Poisoned words, withheld payments, and even assassination attempts. Yet Egill remained undaunted. His poetic gifts became weapons in their own right. In one famous episode, facing certain execution under King Eirik's orders, Egill composed a poem of such masterful praise, artful and flattering, that the king was moved to spare his life. The poem is known as the Huffalo Song, the head ransom. But though his tongue could save him, Egill's sword remained restless. Feuds flared and cooled like embers stirred by wind. In battle, he fought with ferocity. In the hall, he drank deeply. In quiet moments, his mind turned to verse. Yet, even the fiercest warriors are not immune to sorrow. Egill's life was shadowed by personal tragedy. His beloved brother, Thorolf, was slain in battle. Later, his own young sons would be taken from him by illness. In one of his most haunting compositions, Sonatoric, The Loss of Sons, Egill reflects on his crushing grief, on the inexorable hand of fate, and on the gods who had abandoned him. The words carry a quiet dignity, a weight of sorrow that feels as present today as it did 1,000 years ago. I can no longer delight in life, Now that my bright sons are dead, fate has taken all from me, left me stranded in shadow. As the years passed, Egill withdrew from public life. The fire within him, once so volatile, dimmed into a quieter, more contemplative existence. He lived to a great age, even by Viking standards, spending his final days in quiet reflection, his sagas and verses etched into the oral memory of his people. And so, we leave Egill, a man of rage, of artistry, of unfathomable resilience. His life was a storm of passion, but his words remained steady, like ancient runes carved into stone. Now, as the embers in our imaginary longhouse burn low, let us move from the world of flesh and blood to the silent remains of those long departed. Ahead of us lies a mystery preserved beneath the soil, the Oseberg Ship Burial, waiting patiently for our curious gaze. Let the fire dim further, and let your mind drift gently now, from the turbulent life of Egill to a place of quiet wonder. We travel now to southern Norway, to the gentle rolling fields near a place called The year is 1904. A farmer plowing his field strikes something unusual, a portion of old timber, unusually shaped, curving gently like the ribs of some enormous beast lying beneath the earth. This is how one of the most astonishing archaeological discoveries of the Viking world came to light. The Oseberg Ship Burial. Imagine yourself standing there as the first layers of soil are carefully brushed away. Bit by bit, the outline of a ship emerges from the ground. Not a warship, not a vessel built for conquest, but something far more solemn and far more mysterious. The ship itself is magnificent, even after centuries entombed in the damp soil. Nearly 70 feet long, its graceful wooden curves rise like the wings of a great bird frozen in flight. The prow coils upward into an elegant spiral, a masterful carving of intricate spirals and animal motifs, flowing as if alive beneath the archaeologist's fingertips. The Oseberg ship was not meant to sail again. It was never intended to slice through icy waters or glide beneath the pale northern sun. This vessel was a funerary monument, a final resting place for the dead. Within the ship, 2 women were found. They had been laid to rest upon a wooden bed, surrounded by an astonishing collection of grave goods, finely woven tapestries, delicately carved wooden sleighs, intricately designed animal headposts, richly embroidered textiles, farming tools, household goods, even the remains of sacrificed animals, horses, dogs, and oxen, companions for the journey into the afterlife. And yet, the identities of these 2 women remain a mystery that continues to stir quiet fascination. The first woman was older, perhaps in her 70s, an advanced age by Viking standards. Her bones revealed signs of arthritis and a curvature of the spine, suggesting years of physical strain. The second woman was younger, perhaps in her early 50s. Both were clearly of great importance. But who were they? Were they queens, priestesses, wealthy landowners, or perhaps Ceres's women who held spiritual and ritual authority in Norse society, guiding their people through ceremonies and interpreting the will of the gods? The grave goods suggest high status, yet no runestones or inscriptions were found to name them. The preservation of the burial site itself was nothing short of extraordinary. The clay soil and tightly packed turf had created a sealed environment, slowing decay and protecting even fragile fabrics and delicate carvings. The wooden sleighs, adorned with flowing animal designs, still glistened faintly beneath the archaeologist's careful touch, as if newly carved. The tapestries, though fragmented, offered glimpses into Norse mythology. Strange figures with raised arms, processions of animals, and cryptic symbols danced across the fabric, hinting at rituals long forgotten. What do these images mean? Were they depictions of funerary rites, stories of the gods, or visions granted to those who crossed the threshold between worlds? The Oseberg ship seems not only a burial, but a carefully staged representation of the Viking worldview, where life, death, and the realm of the gods flowed together like the endless northern seas. For all its richness, the burial raises as many questions as it answers. Why was such lavish care given to these women? What role did they play in their community? Why was this ship, a vessel so exquisitely crafted, consigned forever to the earth rather than the waves? Archaeologists have speculated, debated, and quietly marveled for over a century. Even now, over 1,000 years after these women were laid to rest, we are left with only soft echoes of their lives. Their names lost, their voices silent, but their presence lingering in the gentle curves of carved wood and the delicate threads of ancient cloth. The Oseberg Ship Burial stands as a silent testament to Viking craftsmanship, to their beliefs about death and the afterlife, and to the enduring mystery that history often offers, a mystery that may never fully yield its secrets. And so, as the wind once again rises softly in our imagined northern night, let us leave these noble women to their rest beneath the earth. We turn now, finally, to another facet of Viking life, one not of toil or mystery, but of indulgence, power, and carefully staged magnificence. The feasts of the Viking chiefs, where longhouses echoed with song, story, and subtle schemes beneath smoky timbered roofs. Allow your mind to drift once more, not to the cold fields or distant burial mounds, but into the warmth of the longhouse at its most vibrant. The flickering glow of torches casts amber light against wooden beams darkened by years of smoke. The thick walls shut out the chill of the northern winds. The air is warm here, heavy with the mingled scents of roasting meat, spiced mead, and pine resin. This is the chieftains' hall. You step quietly inside. Around you, the long benches are filling with guests, warriors draped in fur cloaks, merchants bearing silver rings and polished amber, priests who whisper invocations to the gods, and traveling poets whose words are as valuable as gold. The chieftain himself sits at the head of the hall upon a raised platform, his cloak fastened with ornate brooches, a polished drinking horn resting lightly in his hand. His expression is composed, watchful, but his eyes miss nothing. Here, beneath the open roof beams blackened from generations of feasts, power is measured not by shouted commands, but by subtle glances, quiet alliances, and carefully placed words. The longhouse itself hums with life. The central hearth burns steadily, its flames dancing upward toward the smoke hole above. The fire's warmth eases the joints of old warriors and brings a flush to the cheeks of the young. At the far side, a long table groans under the weight of the evening's feast. Roasted boar, its skin glistening and fragrant, commands the center. Bowls of stewed turnips, barley breads, dried fish, honeyed apples, and dense cheeses surround it. Slaves move quietly between guests, refilling drinking horns with thick, sweet mead and strong ale brewed from last season's grains. The soundscape is soft but constant, low voices blending into one another, the occasional burst of laughter, the rhythmic clink of wooden cups meeting one another in toasts. As the meal progresses, the skald, the poet, rises. He clears his throat and begins his verse, weaving intricate tales of gods and ancestors, of heroic deeds performed beneath foreign suns. His voice rises and falls in a steady rhythm, each carefully chosen word wrapping around the listeners like a soft thread of silk. Under distant stars, sails cut across the frozen sea, and iron met iron where brave men fell. Yet the gods watched, silent, as glory stained the earth beneath. The guests listen, their faces softened by drink, lulled by the familiar cadence of the skald's voice. The sagas are old, but never grow stale. They carry the comfort of known tales, the gentle pleasure of tradition, and the quiet reminder of shared identity. Behind the scenes, quieter conversations unfold. Alliances are tested, promises are made, rivalries are carefully managed. The chieftain listens, nodding occasionally, judging the currents that swirl beneath the surface of his hall. The feast is not merely indulgence, it is theater. Every cup poured, every glance exchanged, every tale recited, serves a purpose. In this world, wealth is not simply accumulated, it is displayed, offered, shared, binding the loyalty of those who partake. As the hours pass, the hall grows quieter. The mead dulls sharp edges, softening voices and blurring the earlier tensions. The fire burns lower. The air is thick with warmth, with stories, and with the slow satisfaction of full bellies. A bard sings a softer tune now, a melancholy air that drifts gently through the thick beams like a lullaby. The sea is dark and endless. The wind whispers through the pines. But here, beneath these timbers, we are safe for one more night. You feel the rhythm of their lives once more. Even here, amid luxury and power, the same rhythms endure. Food, hard-won, alliances, fragile, and the ever-present awareness of nature's unforgiving might just beyond the walls. As the final embers of the hearth glow softly, Guests slip quietly into sleep upon fur-lined benches, their dreams filled with sagas both ancient and new. The feast is over, but the longhouse remains, as it has for generations, a sanctuary of warmth amid a world of cold stone, dark seas, and unyielding sky. And now, as our gentle journey through the world of the Vikings draws to a close, let us ease softly into the present, where warm beds, steady roofs, and quiet nights are ours, far removed from the harsh demands of that distant northern life.